Hello, and a very warm welcome to today's LinkedIn Live with Lynnaire. I'm your host, Lynnaire Johnston, and it is a pleasure to have you with us for what is our last LinkedIn Live for 2023. We've had some great guests during the year on our lives, and I am particularly thrilled to end the year on such a high note as today, because we are very fortunate to have with us Jules Brooke from Melbourne. Now, Jules is a professional speaker. She's the founder of She's the Boss Group and Handle Your Own PR, which is what we're here to talk about today. She's the host of the award-winning She's the Boss Chats podcast, which I've been on, and a YouTube channel as well. So she's been teaching about PR for more than 20 years and helping make women visible through her mentoring programs. She's got a brand new LinkedIn group that is doing really well, and she has a lot of other ways that she helps women of influence be better known. So it is a great thrill to have Jules with us today, all the way from Melbourne. Welcome, Jules.
Oh, Lynnaire, thank you so much. That's a lovely, lovely introduction. And I'm actually so thrilled to be chatting with you. You're one of my favourite people. So this is a delight for me as well.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because you're one of my favourite LinkedIn people too. And you and I go back a bit. We've known each other for a while and helped out each other's audiences with various things. And that's one of the reasons I'm so thrilled to be able to talk with you today, because generally when we get on a call together, we talk about LinkedIn. But today we're generally talking about PR, which is more your field than mine, because I've been on the receiving end of PR. So in my former life, I was a journalist and an editor. And so I was in a position where people were trying to approach me to get publicity for themselves and for their businesses. Now, that's a while ago now, and things have changed, and LinkedIn has certainly changed. And so what I'm hoping to talk to you about today is how things have changed and how people should approach the media now if they want to get media coverage for what they're doing, and how we can use LinkedIn to be able to help us in that endeavour. So I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. We've got lots of people on the call today, and people from all around the world. So it's clearly touched a nerve here on LinkedIn. So shall we get going? Because there's a lot.
Oh, totally. Let's do it.
So let's start with, what's the value of it? Why should we be thinking about getting media exposure? And particularly for most of us who are small business owners, at least that's my main audience. But also, of course, founders, coaches, entrepreneurs, and other businesses that really want to get known out there in the mainstream media. Why should we be doing this?
Okay, well, PR does lots and lots of great things. One of them is that it builds trust very quickly. And the reason for that is that we all have our favorite media outlets. We all consume media at different times, maybe some more than others. But the reality is that it's when we see somebody who is recommended or featured in mainstream media, we do a couple of things. One is we assume that the journalist or editor has vetted that person and has gone out looking for the best person in their field. Because if you're going to be prominent in the media, then people kind of think, oh, well, she must be really good at what she does. So it builds trust far more quickly than, say, an ad, when we all know you've paid for it. The words are yours. PR works a little bit more like that word of mouth thing, where your best friend is telling you that this app is great or this business is great and they should check it out. And the other thing that is particularly good for small business owners is it's free. And you would know that. What you have to do is you have to learn how to tell your story in a way where you're not making it look like an ad. But if you can genuinely add value to their audience, so you've got to pick the media outlet that's got the audience that you're going to resonate with, and you can give them advice, tips, help them avoid making mistakes, or teach them how to do something that they haven't done before, then the media is going to go, this is great, this is just what our audience wants, and they will feature you, and you don't pay for that. And the other beautiful thing particularly about doing your own PR, is that the journalists will start to know what it is that you're talking about, what your expertise is, and they'll keep coming back to you, and they will put you in their little black book, and they'll come back to you time and time again. So it's really, really powerful stuff.
I remember having a little black book when I was a young journalist, the people that you would contact all the time because you knew that they would deliver something really soundbite worthy. They would add to the story and give you something that was absolutely useful. And also they were used to talking to the media, because I think there is an art to that as well. You don't just rock up and just start talking. You have to prepare, don't you? You've got to be well organized, know what you're going to say. And you talked about in that little section there about your story, about your business story. Yes. And I think that's a lot harder for people to do than it sounds.
That's right.
Have you got any tips for us around that? Because I don't think I've got that one quite mastered yet myself.
Well, I guess what I say to people is PR is quite counterintuitive. So if you are promoting yourself, you can't lead by promoting yourself. You've or your business or your expertise. What you want to do is you want to talk about how you can help someone. So one of the things that I say to people is you kind of can position yourself at the beginning by saying something like, after 30 years or 20 years teaching PR, Jules Brooke has got 5 common mistakes, or wants to share that there are 5 common mistakes that business owners make. And the first one, by the way, I always say is you make it too commercial. So you've actually got to go, there are 5 common mistakes that business owners make. If they want to get featured in the media, then here are the 5 things that they need to watch out for. Now, at the very bottom, I will say Jules Brooke is the founder of Handle Your Own PR, a DIY PR service. And if you want to know more, go to www.handleyourownpr.com.au. So to get your, and so that's if you're offering tips and advice. And I would say for any business owners, that is a very safe and easy way to start dipping your toe in the PR pool, because we are able to offer that kind of advice to people. And we all know that there would be probably 3 or 4 questions that everyone asks you every time. If you go out to a barbecue, if you go out to a business event, and you say you do this, people will go, oh, really? What about X, Y, and Z? Those are the things people want to know. So they're probably the best things to lead with in your media release. But other than that, just to your comment about being really prepared and experienced to be able to speak to journalists, I just want to encourage small business owners to understand that we are all experts at something. So even I was working with a garlic farmer, and she said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, I have no idea how to know the best way to store garlic. I don't know how you can tell it's fresh. What are the different types of garlic out there? So, and there was another guy who had a bedding store, and it was like, well, what are the best kind of mattresses for the way you sleep? There is always some expertise that we all have in our businesses that other people don't know about. So that's what you should lead with when you're when you want to go to the media.
I think that's an excellent idea, and also questions you get asked about your business. I think that's a really good idea. I'd like a bit of some information about how to plait garlic. Just saying, next time you're talking to your garlic farmer. I think that there is a perception that the media is all about giving publicity to big organizations at the expense of little ones. Is that true, do you think?
No. I can jump in and categorically say over the last 20 years, I've probably helped about 1,000 small business owners, often solopreneurs, often somebody very, picture framers, very small businesses that work locally. But you just need to be careful about the media you go to. So there is no point going to a big national newspaper if you cannot deliver your service to people nationally. That's really the only caveat I would say. If you are a local business, go to your local newspaper. If you are a statewide business, go to your statewide media. And if you can deliver nationally or even internationally, which a lot of us can, because we are online most of the time now, and if you can do that, then why stop at Australia or New Zealand? Why not go to a different country's media? The same story applies. If you can help people and you can guide them, then the media will be interested.
Right. So what's the best way to approach the media? How do we get in touch with the right person? What should we be looking for? Because I would imagine that in smaller organizations, there would be one business reporter, for example,
Yes.
but in bigger organizations, there might be multiple business reporters or business journalists, business
Yep.
editors. How do we go about approaching them or finding them first and then approaching them?
Okay. Well, first I'll talk about outside of LinkedIn, and then let's talk about how
Oh,
I
yes.
use LinkedIn if I'm looking for journalists. So the first thing that I would do is go and Google your subject and find out what journalists are writing about your topic. So that would be the first thing that I would do. If you know the name of a journalist, you can call a media outlet and say, please put me through to Joe Blogs, because you know that he has written something on a topic that relates to your business. That is a really good way. I don't want anyone to be scared to ring a media outlet and ask them. Often also, if you do that kind of Googling, you will come across an article they've written, and the bigger media outlets, often you can click on the byline of the journalist and it will pop up with an email. So it doesn't happen with all of them, but I mean, I know, I'm pretty sure the Fin Review in Australia, the Sydney Morning Herald, the big newspapers can do that. The other thing that you can do is Google a media outlet. So say you want to be on we have a show in Australia called Sunrise, which is the breakfast show. You can, and we know it's on Channel 7, you can ring Channel 7 and say, could you give me the email address of a producer? So that is one way that I do it. The other way that I love to do it, because I'm so in love with LinkedIn, is I Google journalist, business. Sorry, not Google. I go into the search topic. I go journalist. I then might filter down by location, or I'll do journalist business or journalist lifestyle, and people will pop up, and I just connect with them, and then try sending them an email. Now, the only thing I would say is that journalists, as we know, were all over Twitter, now X.
Yeah.
So some of them, the business journalists, will be on LinkedIn, most of them. Other people, as LinkedIn is growing, are realizing, oops, I need to be in there. But you won't necessarily get an answer from there, but you will definitely be able to find who that person is and where they work. So so LinkedIn is a really good way. Sometimes you can message them, which is great. The other way, on the flip side, is if you send something to a journalist, they're probably going to Google you. And if they Google you, what's the first thing that's going to come up?
Their LinkedIn profile. Their LinkedIn profile.
So it works on both levels. You can search for journalists, but you can be bloody sure that they're also going to go and snoop around, your business and what you're doing, and your LinkedIn profile is going to come up. So you want to make sure your profile is ready for that too.
Oh, and I believe that anything that you do on LinkedIn and a lot off LinkedIn always comes back to your profile, Jules. I just say it time and time again because it is so important, and it's your personal brand, it's your professional brand, and it's what everybody looks at when they want to check you out, to make sure that you're real, that you can do what you say you can do, and all those positive things. And I think we do tend to forget the power of our LinkedIn profiles, and there have been so many changes to them this year, some great ones, some not so good. So the ones that are not quite so good, I will just mention one of those here, and that is that now if you have the free account on LinkedIn, you will be restricted to the number of messages the number of messages that you can send with a connection invite. Let me swap that around and say you are restricted to the connection invite message number, which is generally around 10 or 20 a month. So that means that you're going to be sending, if you're on a free account, a lot of messages to connect with no message at all, just the default message, and that is a shame. And so that means that those. You've got to work around.
And we've talked about this. I don't follow best practice. I'm pretty bad that way. So I do connect without a message, and the way that it comes back to your profile, is that I know that if I've connected without a message, they are going to go and check me out, which is what I do with anyone who connects with me. So if you want to, I've connected with a lot of people without sending a message. I send them a message after they connect with me. But if your profile is good and they go and check you out and go, oh, I want to be connected to that person, it works really well as well. And now I'll shut up. Go on.
No, I think that's a very good point, and it really does go straight back to the heart of the matter, which is that you need a really good LinkedIn profile if you're going to want to connect with the media. And my suggestion or move forward on that one is that the bigger the news outlet, the better your profile is going to need to be, because they won't want to be interviewing or quoting relative unknowns, so people with very small networks, or people who cannot and do not on their LinkedIn profile demonstrate their ability. And so that means you need to have a good number of recommendations, which of course you can now put into your featured section with a premium account, it must be said, and you need to be using all the other features that I think now LinkedIn have made available, which improve profiles enormously. Now, on that, I wanted to ask you what you think is one of the best, or several best ways that you can improve your profile, or what do you need to put on your profile that will attract journalists and editors, or at the very least make them go, I want to talk to this person. Is there a feature maybe that we could be using better, or we need to add or use that would help in that regard?
Wow, good question. Okay, what would I would say for most profile headlines, I would try and have the word expert in there, because I think that they do search for an expert in a particular topic or a particular subject. And I also think in the featured section that you need to have as much as you can possibly do. And the featured section will allow you to put up PowerPoint presentations. It'll allow you to put up links to talks you've done. And then, as I have just discovered, and obviously you know this anyway, but as you go through your job roles, you actually have that featured bit now that you can put in, where you can show videos that you might have created, white papers that you've written, all of that kind of stuff, I think adds to your credibility. And the journalist is most concerned that, not that you have 1,000,001 degrees, but that you know what it is that you're talking about. They want to see that you haven't spent 6 months working in that industry and now you're trying to make yourself out to be an expert. So the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is the more you love it and work on it on your profile over time, the more you've got a long history that the journalists can see that you're not just a fly-by-night.
I think that's an excellent idea, because LinkedIn has changed tremendously in recent years, and it is much more about the visuals now than it used to be. It was all about the text in the old days. Now, of course, you can add video and you can have images, and as you say, PowerPoints, PDFs, all kinds of things that really do demonstrate your expertise. And we do definitely need to be thinking about LinkedIn in a completely different way than a lot of us have in the past, if we want to be seen as credible and knowledgeable. And I'm interested that journos who were relying on X for their sources of stories or articles are now gravitating towards LinkedIn. Yeah, and unfortunately, LinkedIn has recently struck off, if you like, its connection with X and taken away any kind of links between the two organizations, which does seem to be counterproductive. But I can quite understand where they might be coming from on that, because LinkedIn has really made some big changes in lots of directions this year. But we are talking about PR. Right, using the featured section and adding media to our profiles is a really good thing. It's something that we need to do. Now, you mentioned earlier on the words media release. Now, I think that's a term that is likely to make people go, oh, I don't think I can do this. This isn't for me. Tell us about media releases and their importance, and whether we really need to write them.
Well, it's interesting, because I didn't realize I had said that. And I think what I really talk about now with people is write articles. And actually, I have a little graphic that I share that says, if you're already writing articles for LinkedIn, why not just send them to the media first? So the reason for that So firstly, I would say a media release these days, unless you're sending it to a big media outlet like a newspaper, the idea of a media release was that you would say, I've got all this stuff going on. Will you write a story on me? And what's actually happened over the years now is that journalists have been laid off left, right, and centre. We've had one newspaper alone let off 1,400 staff, I think it was last year or the year before.
Wow.
So they are much more time poor, those journalists. So the big media outlets, say the Fin Reviews and the big metro newspapers, still have plenty of journalists. They will want to write the story themselves. But if you want to get into a smaller media outlet now and you send them an article that is ready to go, so, and when I say that, I mean, you really need to write in the third person. So as I said earlier, rather than me saying, as you know, I love working in PR and I have done this and I have done that, I would say Jules Brooke, founder of blah, blah, blah. Now, Brooke says this, and here's a quote from Brooke, you know, that kind of thing, as a journalist would. If you do that and then you send that to the media with a photo, because that's the other thing that they hate looking for, but you will never read an article anywhere that doesn't have some kind of an illustration or a photo. So if you can solve that problem for the journalist and send them something that is complete, they are much more likely to cut and paste it and put it into their small media outlet, their digital newspaper or magazine or whatever it is that you're targeting. Yeah. I don't know whether I can't remember what the other part of the question was.
Neither can I. Let's move on then. Because in the old days, it was very prescribed. There were certain things that you had to do in order to gain an editor's attention. And I think that that's changed a lot these days. And I sometimes look at my news feed and go, that story just looks like it came off Facebook. And
Funny about that.
And so if that's the case, surely that story could just come off LinkedIn. And I can't see any reason why what we put on LinkedIn couldn't be doing that.
No, but the only thing I would say is that journalists are looking for clickbait. These days, particularly, you know, they're all fighting with each other to get that short attention span that we've got. So don't put your article up on LinkedIn and then send it to them. Do it the other way around, because Google, and I'm just going to give you my very incredibly basic Google understanding, but Google will only rank things the first time it sees it. So if it's been on your LinkedIn post, it's been published, in which case Google, if they put it in a newspaper, it's not going to get the same traction as it would. So what I say to people is, write your article, send it to the media. If they run it, then great. You've got something you can post and you've got your article that you can put up. If they don't, then you're back to square one and you just post it up on LinkedIn. But try not to publish things first, because the media now is scrabbling for that SEO and that attention that they're going to get from Google, and they only get it the first time an article goes up. Or rewrite it, tweak it slightly.
Right. I think, though, that if you're going to do that, your point about sending it to the media first is the important thing. How long should you leave it, though, before you then put it up on LinkedIn? Because do journalists use stories immediately? Because it seems to me these days that everything happens so much faster than it used to. And I'm not talking about monthly magazines or anything, but more common daily media, maybe. The turnaround would be quite swift.
Online media, I used to run PR accelerator events, and we would write a media release and article, send it out to the journalist, and in the return email, they would say, it's up on our website, here's the link. So it can happen that fast, because digital media outlets obviously have a massive appetite now. I mean, I know I go to a media outlet maybe 4 times in a day, and I expect different stories each time.
Yes.
So they are looking, they have a huge appetite for it, but it depends whether you're going for a digital media outlet, you're pitching for radio or TV, which you would give them maybe a week, and then you'd go back and say, did you see this? And if you're not interested, I'm going to, put it up somewhere else. If you go to monthly magazines, they may take a couple of weeks to come back to you. But you are well within your rights to send an email and say, listen, I'm just wondering, are you going to use it? And if not, do you mind if I send it somewhere else? So journalists are very used to that. Daily newspapers, they say that they like 24 hours, but you need to make sure that they've seen it. So what happens these days is people send something to a media outlet, they don't get an answer, and they think, oh, they're not interested. But I always say, just assume they haven't seen it. So send it back to them a couple of days later saying, just bumping this to the top of your inbox, or I just want to check that you saw this. And then they'll say yes or no. But if it's something you really want, I would pick up the phone and call the media outlet and say, I sent you an article a couple of days ago that I thought was perfect for your readers. I haven't heard back from you. Did you see it?
Well, that's fairly upfront, and let's face it, if you want to be in the media, you're going to have to be upfront. Right. There's no place for being shy and retiring if you want to be in the media, particularly if you want to make it an ongoing thing and be seen as somebody who is all over what's currently topical in your industry, which means then you need to be on top of what's going on in your industry, which I would like to hope that that was the case. So you talked about at the beginning, sharing tips and ideas, or top 10 tips or 5 tips would make a good media article. And also common mistakes that people make. I think that's a really positive one too, because people always want to know whether they're making that common mistake in their industry. Are there any other evergreen topics that might work really well for small business owners?
The other one I like to use is do's and don'ts. So, for instance, if you're an accountant, you might say 5 things you should ask your accountant before you employ them. It might be things that you should do before you go and buy your Christmas present, or before you go and buy a bed, go and measure how big it is, go and find out what way you sleep, ask your partner whether they like soft or firm, whatever it might be. So do's and don'ts is another great one. Things you shouldn't do, things you should do that you know within your industry. And then there is always the timeliness of it. So when I say timeliness, the media works pretty much on the same cycles as retail. So there's Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, New Year's Eve, Easter, etc., etc. So if you can hook your story into something that is coming up. So for instance, we've got Christmas coming up now, but also New Year's Eve is coming up. And what happens with New Year's Eve? New Year's resolutions. So if you wanted to write an article to appear early in January, you would say your New Year's resolutions for business should include X, Y, and Z. And they know that that story is not going to work if they leave it too long, because it won't be relevant. Or 3 things you should do with your family over Christmas, or how to survive the Christmas break. So you lock it into something that's timely. The other one that's coming up quite fast is Valentine's Day. And I know that people would go, oh my God, but that's 6 weeks away. But a lot of journalists, certainly in Australia, and I imagine New Zealand, are going to take most of January off. And if they are, that means that by the end of December, they want to get their articles ready for early February. So if that's the case, you can, and when I talk about Valentine's Day and people go, I know, but I'm talking about business, you go, how much do you love your employee? Are you romancing your clients? You don't have to do a lot to bring that hook in to make it timely, but timeliness is another great one. And probably the last one I'd say is keep an eye at what's going on in the media. And if there is something that you can hook into that's trending at the moment, then go and send them an article about it.
That's a really good idea, because responses are always good article fodder as well. In my day, you used to put the different arguments on from both sides in the same article, but these days things have happened so fast. I think that the responses have to come a little while later. Now, you also mentioned the Christmas holidays, and I just want to say something about that, because when I worked in radio, both weekends and long weekends particularly, and the Christmas holidays, holidays were the hardest times to find articles to print, or to, in my case, to read in the radio news. And so if you can find something that isn't about the road toll, isn't about animals being left at home while people are on holiday, or anything other than what's going on internationally, and none of that is good, then I think there is a definite gap in the market for the Christmas holiday story. And if you can pitch it to be around the festive season in some way, so much the better. But, I'm wondering, or asking really, whether or not you can still submit stories at this time of the year that may not be quite as timely as that, or they might have more of an evergreen feel. They could be printed in February rather than over the holidays. Would that make sense to do that?
Yes, it would. I always think that this time of year is very interesting for PR, because obviously a lot of journalists will take that time off, but there will definitely be a skeleton staff there. And if you want to build a relationship with the media or with a particular media outlet, to call them in early January is, I think, quite smart, because the journalist is not only going to be scrabbling around looking for stories, but will probably have more time to have a chat with you. And so it is a great way. Or you could say, can I take you out for a cup of coffee? I'll meet you, I'll take you to a cafe near your shop. So there is a lot more time that you can do evergreen articles, and they will use them all the time. And some of the ones I've suggested, which journalists called listicles, which are the top 5 tips for this or whatever, they can be used forever, and sometimes are reused because they aren't timely. And someone's pulled out of a story, or an ad hasn't gone in that they wanted to go in, and they're like, what can I put in? Oh, this fits. So sending timely ones and sending evergreen ones are both brilliant.
What about video? Now, I talked briefly about video for LinkedIn. Is there a role for video in the media in terms of sending them something that shows the media that you are camera ready, shall we say, or able to talk on screen? Or do you need to wait for them to rock up and set up a camera crew?
No. So if you are going for TV, then to be able to show the journalists what you're like and that you can talk online, I mean on screen, is fantastic, and it'll give them a lot of reassurance. The other thing about video, though, Lynnaire, is that a lot of the digital media outlets now also look for video stories. So if you want to talk to camera and offer some, again, tips, advice, something that is sharing your expertise with people, that is not all about you and how great you or your business is, but is much more about sharing what's between your ears, then you may find that they will pick that up as well. And the other thing is, and the advertising agencies know this very well, if you create something that goes viral, and it can be something stupid or something great, but if you've got a lot of viewers to something, then alert the media to the fact that you've had that many views, because they may well put it up on their website. They may conjure up a story to fit that in, because they want the clickbaits on their website as well. And then you get all the backlinks and the glory that comes with the fact that you've been featured. So most media outlets these days are becoming much more focused on the digital side of things. As we know, I mean, free to air television, one of the questions that we should probably address is traditional media dead? Because people are leaving it in droves. And my answer to that, by the way, is no, it isn't. It still has enormous credibility for you and your business. To focus on media outlets. So therefore, video does become useful. You could send them a 2-minute clip for something.
I like that idea, because it shows not only that you can speak coherently, that you look reasonably good on camera, but also that you know your stuff, and you can speak succinctly, because it is, I don't know about you, but I find it an awful lot easier to be able to record a 1-minute video on a topic without making any mistakes or blunders or ums and ahs, although I do use the word now a lot, than anything longer. If a video is getting to be about 1:30 or longer than that, I stumble and I stutter and I become completely incoherent. So from my perspective, making a video short is a really good idea. And on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn posts in particular, videos that are between 30 and 60 seconds perform the most strongly. So it's a very good thing to be doing to master the art of video. Now, you and I do events all the time, so we're on camera all the time, and that's a fantastic thing to be doing, so people can see the record of us doing that. We both have YouTube channels and we're both doing events on LinkedIn, etc. But I think that for other people who are new to the video world, they're not yet seeing the importance of it, Jules, either on LinkedIn or generally. And I believe that is going to be next year's big leap forward. Yeah. And one of the reasons I'm saying that is because of the emergence of AI so strongly, particularly on LinkedIn this year. And now anybody can write anything, can make comments using AI, write posts with AI. AI is everywhere. So if you want to be authentic and come across as who you really are on LinkedIn, the way to do that is on video. And so I think there's a role for that in terms of what the media are doing as well. And if we can show that we're at the forefront of this movement, i.e. putting videos together that are succinct and have a bit of guts to them, then that's going to stand us in good stead and will probably make us seem better than other people who are also experts in our industry because we've gone that one step further.
I would say, though, do not put logos and graphics all over your video, because immediately it's the same thing. If you want to send a photo to the media, do not send it with words on it. Do not send it with logos on it, because they can't use it, because immediately then it looks more like an ad. So if you are going to do an article, if you are going to send a video to the media, don't have, you know, where I've got Jules Brooke, don't have the She's the Boss logo here and the blah, blah, blah there, because they'll go, you know what, go and put that up on your own website. We're not putting it on ours. They want this. They want what we're doing now. Pretty clean kind of video where you might have a title at the bottom, but that's it.
I agree. And we have to remember that for the media, it's all about their audience and what their audience wants to see.
They don't care about you. They care about their readers.
That's a shame, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very disappointing.
It's brutal, but true.
But do you know, I think that it is rather similar to LinkedIn, because if you're posting on LinkedIn, people don't want you to be posting about how fantastic you are. They want to be hearing what you have to say about your area of expertise.
How you can help me. It's all about me on all the social media channels.
And so it's turning that around, I think, to make that more valuable for the media as the big thing. And a lot of people forget that, and people do that routinely on their websites too, as they make it all about themselves. All right, I want to see if you've got any ideas around the media and LinkedIn company pages in terms of whether or not there is any correlation between the two and how we might use those better to attract media attention. Or is that just one step too far, do you think?
I think they are interested in people. So where your company page will be useful, and it really is, I would think, across the whole of LinkedIn, is really just to see whether it is a credible company, to know that there's a logo there, so it's not so small that you haven't put a logo up. But I don't know that there is any, I don't think that there is probably any point approaching company pages and trying to interact with them at the moment anyway, to try and build some kind of a rapport. The rapport is always with the people. So it's from you to the journalist. You can go and find out about the media outlet. Most company pages are pretty bloody stagnant. I mean, I don't know that people have a lot of stuff in there. I can see that LinkedIn is trying to turn them into something, and now you can do messaging to pages. I don't know. I would imagine if you're a big media outlet that you've probably got some junior burger that's monitoring your social media, and it may never get to the person you want to get it to. So At the moment, I would say no. We all need to have a company page as a presence to show what we do, and also so that in your profile, when you say where you work, it doesn't have that blank. It's got a logo there for the company that you work. But at the moment, that's kind of all the benefits that I can see.
No, that makes sense. I'm a great fan of company pages, as you know, being the co-author of the world's only book about LinkedIn company pages, Business Gold. I'll just get that little plug in there because this is not the media and I can say what I like. But I think that they do have a role to play in our own LinkedIn marketing. But yes, I'm with you that there are certain areas where I think this doesn't.
It may grow, but I don't think at the moment that it's where I just don't think that there's any point interacting with it. But you can do a bit of research around it. It's a great way to find their website.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. That would make sense. Absolutely. All right. I want to ask about LinkedIn groups. And I know that you recently, and this is kind of off topic, really, you recently set up a LinkedIn group. And I would like to hear a little bit about that. And let's see whether there is a way that might fit into what we're actually supposed to be talking about, which is media, of course. So tell us about this LinkedIn group you've set up.
Okay, well, I'll give you a PR hook straight away, which is that my mission for the rest of my career, I want to really help make women more visible. And one of the things that they need to do is PR. And the other thing that they need to do is they need to be speaking. And I coach a course called How to Become a Woman of Influence. And one of the pillars in that is about speaking. So I was doing some research 2 weeks ago around how do you find women speakers, because I saw a post on LinkedIn for a woman saying, how can I find speakers for my little business networking group? And I also saw another post from someone who was a bit bigger profile saying, what was it? It was, how can I find keynotes outside of using agencies? So we know that there are big speaker agencies out there, but they charge like a wounded bull, and they tend to have a lot of the same people that just keep coming up. So I went searching on LinkedIn and I went Australian women speakers, where can I find them? And all it came up with was a whole lot of individual profiles. And I thought, what if I just start a group and I call it Australian Women Speakers, and I'll just invite some women in and see if that means that if someone is searching for Australian women speakers, that they see that there's a group with 30 members in it. Well, that was 2 weeks ago, and I'm now at nearly 500, and it's growing by about 10 a day. So I've clearly hit on something, and I'm absolutely loving it. But again, you've got to interact a lot. And at the moment, it was like a little 5-minute idea that I had. So now I'm kind of going, okay, now what am I going to do with this? So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm doing posts where I share the group and say, are you looking for a speaker? Then I've got, here's a place where you'll find a whole lot of them. And by the way, it's open to New Zealand speakers, women speakers as well, because you said, I want to join the group and I can't find it. And I went, oh my God, there's a setting. So now it's for Australia and New Zealand.
Well, thank you for including us, Jules. I'm interested in groups because earlier on in LinkedIn's history, they were really successful. And then they fell by the wayside, mainly because people tried to spam group members. And they've never really recovered. Now, I do have a LinkedIn group, a private one for my Linkability members, which is a really good way for me to be able to share content with other members that I don't want to put out there on the LinkedIn generally. But if you have a group that is not private, you just have a LinkedIn group. I've discovered
mine is public, and I did it on
yours
purpose.
is public. Yep. The material that gets put on there is also going out to other people beyond the group. Right. And I think that is well worth remembering, because it's another avenue for people to find you and your content. So how have we missed that, and why are we not
I don't know, but
more use of it, Jules?
It's funny because look, Facebook has always been my platform. I've loved it for many, many years. We had Facebook pages, and then Mark Zuckerberg decided he didn't want anyone to do business on Facebook. And so the 10 years I spent up building my audience on Facebook disappeared like that, really. unless you put money behind it. So then I went in and started a group, and I decided I would do a public group for exactly that reason. I wanted it to grow. I wanted people to be able to see the content. And on Facebook, you can't, and on LinkedIn, you can't share from a private group to the public. So I decided I would say, look, how I'm going to manage if we do get spammers in there, I don't know. But my idea is that if you create a group, you make it public, you share expertise, as you say, then not only my followers see it, but all the women that interact with me and women that are in the group see it. And it kind of grows that way. I'm interested to see, I'm literally applying what I know on Facebook, because I've grown a big group for She's the Boss on Facebook, to LinkedIn to see if it, so it's very experimental, and certainly it's only 2 weeks old, but I mean, I've been quite shocked really at how fast it's growing. And obviously the topic is something that women really want. They all want an opportunity to speak, but also, will we pull in the people that are looking for speakers? Now, something that's interesting that I'll just throw in with you is when I go and search Australian women speakers, I can't find the group. So I don't know whether LinkedIn is playing games and they're kind of keeping groups on the down low, or whether it's just because it's my group but I'll have to get anyone here can search for me and send me a message on LinkedIn and let me know if they can find it. But I'm sharing it. I can share it from there. But when I go searching, it's not coming up as being in, say, the top 10. Maybe you've got to have 1,000 before it starts throwing it up into the searches. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, we all know, Jules, that the LinkedIn algorithm is a law unto itself. I could sit here for hours and tell you what I think might be happening, but I have absolutely no real idea. And that simply is because of the way that the algorithm works. It may well have something to do with the numbers, but I would have thought an active group, which yours will have an active group badge on it, I'm sure, and it's got more than 500 members. I would have thought that would have put it right up the top, particularly because you are quite specific about the topic. And so I'm very surprised that is the case. So yes, if anyone else wants to have a look and see whether or not they can find it. What's the name of it again?
Australian Women Speakers.
Right. All right. Okay. Let's see what happens as a result of that. Okay. So let us wrap this up with some final ideas and thoughts. What have I not asked you about that would be really helpful for people wanting to get their story out there in the media, or not necessarily their story? That's probably not quite what I mean, but get an article out there or get their name out there in the media. Oh, for the right reasons. I imagine it's not difficult to get noticed for the wrong reasons.
Let's not even go there with that.
No.
Okay. I think one of the things that people say to me is, I feel like I should wait. I just need to wait till I've got a good story. I need to wait until my business has been running for a bit longer. They're probably not interested in a small business or a new business. So the first thing I want to say is new is exactly what the word news and newspaper comes from. They want new things. So if you are just starting a business out, don't think about, oh, I'll wait until the business has been running for a year or two. Now is when you need to build that awareness. So now is when you should be doing it. And there is no time like the present to just get started and give it a go, because as far as I'm concerned, the worst thing that'll happen is your story won't get picked up and you're back to where you are now. So there's no loss there, but there's a possible gain. And I would also say, if you get turned down by a media outlet, don't feel that you can't approach them again with a different angle. Sometimes people say to me, how frequently should I do it? And I would say, as frequently as you want to. If you think about a PR agency, and when I had mine, we had 10 staff in there. We were all doing lifestyle PR, which is a limited number of media. Those media outlets might have had 10 articles come from us in one day, and certainly 10 in a week. And that doesn't matter. Journalists don't care. They're just looking for a good story. So if they don't like the first one, they might like the second one. If you have the opportunity to converse with them in some way, if they email you back and go, it's not quite right for us, say, what are you looking for? But I would just say there's no time like the present.
And be persistent, as you say. I think that's a really important thing. And don't feel that your ideas aren't worthy. because if you have to remember that there are people out there who want the information that you have, and that you can help them by sending this to the media. So I think there's a bit of courage involved in that. And as you say, the worst thing is that they won't use it, or they'll just send you a no thanks, but
That's
maybe
right.
next time.
And you have to do it. And you have to practice. I mean, your first media release is probably not going to be as great as your 10th. So you just want to keep doing it, and don't feel that imposter syndrome that so many people do feel around, particularly around being an expert. I'll tell you one little story just before we go, where I have people who say, oh, but I need to have a degree, or I need qualifications. There, I've got a couple of great videos that images that I share. One is a guy on the BBC breakfast show called an emoji, an emoji translator, which just makes me laugh. He got onto a craft and he just said, let me tell you what a smiley face and a love heart means. And then the other one is a classic, and it just goes to show anyone can be an expert. It is a picture of a guy on Foxtel, and it says, cheese shredder expert. So you can be an expert in whatever niche you like. This was a show about hot dogs or something, I think. And this guy came on to talk about the best kind of shredded cheese you should use. But everyone is an expert, and the media is happy to niche it down as small as they need, as long as it's relevant.
Oh, I think that's just delightful. And it's those quirky stories that do end up at the end of media bulletins on TV news, that kind of thing, because they're always looking for something that's a wee bit different or outrageous, or that nobody else knows about, or doesn't fit into the actual news cycle, but is actually of interest to the audience. So I think that's fantastic. All right. So Jules, let's finish off with you telling us how people can find you and what it is that you can help them with. I think those are the two important things. Okay. How they can find you, how you can help them.
All right. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Jules Brooke. You can see my spelling there. That is my favorite place to be. You can send me a message on there. In terms of what I do now, I've moved slightly away. So handleyourownpr.com.au still exists. It's no longer my focus. I've handballed it over to a fabulous woman called Jasmine Batra. I now am focused on my group called she'sthebossgroup.com if you want to have a look at what I'm up to. And I teach how to become a woman of influence. And LinkedIn is the number one thing that I start with. But then I go into PR, speaking, podcasting, online courses, networking, and awards.
Well, you are exactly like me. We're both obsessed with LinkedIn and its power to provide opportunities, particularly when used consistently and over a period of time. So that is all great. So I do hope that you'll hear from some of our listeners, watchers, or people seeing our live today. Jules, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about your experiences and some of those fabulous little stories about different ideas for media releases. I know I've learned quite a bit, and so I'll be going through the transcript of our conversation with a fine-tooth comb to see what other ideas I can pick up that I can be using for myself, and seeing if I can't put them into practice too. So thank you very much indeed, and for being our very final guest for 2023. It's been a pleasure to have you today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. And my learning from this is I'm going to start doing some LinkedIn lives as well. I haven't done it yet.
Fantastic. Well, why don't you stay on the line after you and I finished here in a minute or two, and we'll have a wee chat about that. So to everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today. Jules and I have had a fabulous chat about the media and how to get your business and your story out there to the big wide world. Now, we've got one more event for the year next week, our final LinkedIn radio audio room next Thursday at the same time, 1 o'clock New Zealand time, 11 a.m. Australian daylight time in the east, and we look forward to seeing you there. We're going to have some guests with us from the United States, which will be really lovely. And if you want to upskill yourself on LinkedIn, please do pop over to our linkability.biz site and check out the wealth of information that we have for you there on our own site. So thank you again for joining us today. Thank you for my wonderful team, Cher and Jilly in the background, making sure that things kept going well today. And we will see you in 2024 on our first live at the end of January. Thanks again, and bye for now.
Bye.